This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we take a look into the Florida machete murder of Athalia Ponsell Lindsley in our continuing exploration into why Florida is the way that it is.
It is a unique place with some funny stories coming out of it.
They have the magical world of Harry Potter. Or is it the Wizarding World?
What about Miami Beach, baby?
Yeah, sure, Miami Beach.
Never
great.
been.
Yeah, you don't seem like a Miami Beach type.
No.
Anyways, we're here to talk about a machete murder. And also, we have talked about Florida in the past. We investigated that lady who exploded in her living room.
I loved that lady.
You did?
I mean, I didn't know her.
You did love
It
the
was a
fact
good
that her
story.
head was the size of a tiny little teaspoon, or a teacup. Anyways, let's get into it. Born into a life of privilege, Athalia Ponsell Lindsley was a former Broadway actress, model, inventor, real estate agent, and author. She was, according to her detractors and the Orlando Sentinel, a sharp-tongued, aggressive woman who, quote, would not have won any popularity contest, end quote. Indeed, in 1970, Athalia ran for Florida legislature and lost.
I feel like a mark of true success is when you have detractors. That's a wonderful thing.
Oh, like when you get haters?
Oh, yeah.
That's like the old way to say that.
Yeah. I would love some haters.
Yeah, I'd love some haters too.
Why don't you take a long walk down a short pier?
I like it.
Yeah.
No, that's too general
Save.
and too hypothetical. I like when it gets pointed, like, oh, I hate his stupid beady eyes.
Or like your
and
little rooster,
yeah,
your
look
little
at,
rooster
look at his
hair
little,
up there.
look at that little surf wave on his head. I'm gonna get my little boogie board and surf that in the morning. In 1973, Athalia married James Lindsley, a real estate agent and the former mayor of St. Augustine, Florida, where Athalia lived at the time. While they were married in September, by the next January, the two still lived in separate homes. Athalia was trying to sell the house she was living in and didn't want to leave it unoccupied before moving to her new husband's home. She never got the opportunity. Now, it is funny that they are both real estate agents and they cannot sell their house. Maybe they're just not that good at their jobs, or maybe, just maybe, no one wants to live in Florida. I'm just imagining a bunch of people going, do you need to buy a house here? It's like, I'm a real estate agent too. Do you want to buy a house here? And that's just a big feedback loop. Just, do you want to buy a house here? Oh,
It's real estate agents selling real estate to other
real estate. And like, I know you're ripping me off, but I already have a house. On January 23rd, 1974, between 6 and 6:15 p.m., the 56-year-old Athalia went outside to walk her pet blue jay, Clementine.
That is cool.
She's taking her bird for a walk.
I love that. I had a wonderful little bird, I understand.
We all know you kept your bird in a freezer for 2 years.
The ground was hard, we couldn't bury him yet.
For 2 years.
No, it wasn't 2 years, it was just over the harsh Chicago winter, and when the ground thawed, we buried him in the garden.
We all know you ate that bird. We
You
all know
can't
it.
eat a parrot.
You did. Tell me
I
how you
didn't
did
eat a parrot. I loved him. I'm done talking about my parrot. I'm not entertaining this bit. Because I love that little bird.
On her porch, she encountered a man wielding a machete who proceeded to hack her to death. By the time police arrived, Athalia had been nearly decapitated. Police Chief Virgil Stewart said, quote, she was dead when we got there. She had been badly butchered. Her head was almost cut off, end quote. Clementine, the blue jay, was never seen again.
Do you think this person maybe was Clementine's original owner and just wanted the bird back?
I did not consider that possibility. It's actually not even in my theories.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time you've glossed over things.
Well, I do think it's a bit of a jump to say, hey, that's my parrot. I think your head doesn't look good on your shoulders anymore.
Yeah, so we know you're not one to jump to conclusions.
I don't jump
or
to conclusions.
Shoddy theories.
Only if I have some facts behind it, big boy.
Take it away.
A neighbor, 19-year-old Locke McCormick, said he could hear Athalia's screams from his house. When he went to check on Athalia, he discovered her butchered body. He told police he saw a 40 to 60-year-old man wearing a white shirt and dark pants walking away from the house. A witness reported that there was blood in the grass, quote, leading all around the south side of the house, end quote. At one point, a police officer ordered the ambulance attendants to hose down the blood.
Does that fly in the face of like crime scene investigation? Just hose everything down, maybe?
Let's get this evidence out of here. All right, now I could think clearly. The sheriff offered a $500 reward to anyone with information on the case. On February 17, 1974, a county mechanic named Dewey Lee said he'd searched the marshes 1 mile from Lindsley's home and discovered a machete and a package containing a bloodied white shirt, dark pants, a watch, and a pair of shoes. After Athalia's death, Frances Bemis, a 70-year-old retired department store public relations exec and fashion consultant, told her friends that she knew something about the murder. Bemis, who was reportedly a friend of Athalia's, was even said to have been collaborating with a writer on a book about Athalia after her death. She did not seem afraid when Athalia turned up slain, telling the St. Augustine Record, quote, "I think St. Augustine is the safest place I have ever lived. I go out walking at night and will continue to do so. I went out walking the same night that the murder took place," end quote.
I don't know what I'd make of that. If this grisly murder had occurred and a woman just proudly proclaimed like, well, I'm not afraid. Maybe if she knew her well, it's her way of saying like, well, she must have been into something dirty, baby. Yeah. That kind of stuff doesn't happen around here. And let me show you.
I'm gonna go on a walk right now.
Yeah.
Frances indeed continued to go walking at night, including on November 3rd, 1974, a little over 9 months after Athalia was murdered. The next day, not far from where Athalia was murdered, a man walking his dog found Frances dead in a vacant lot.
Oh no! What?
That's unfortunately the old picture wrap on Frances Bemis.
Oh, well, you know, she died doing what she loved.
She did die doing what she loved.
And look, if you're an old lady and this killer has already killed an old lady with something as simple as a machete, this is not the Zodiac. It's not someone who's, you know, pulling a lot of strings and putting a lot of production design into their work. It's just walking up to someone with a machete and just being like, ah!
On the flip side of that too, like
don't challenge that.
Who are you also like making yourself a big man out to be?
Yeah.
Like you murdered an old lady with a machete? That's crazy. Wow, you must be really dangerous, man. It's not like he murdered Macho Man Randy Savage out there.
That'd be a feat.
It's an old lady.
Yeah.
So good for him, I guess. She had apparently been clobbered repeatedly with a stone block. She was semi-nude, with most of her clothes having been ripped off, though an autopsy report found no indication of rape. An account by the New York Daily News noted that her body had been burned, as though a killer had tried to destroy the corpse. Another thing about this one is the attempt to destroy the evidence, destroy the body by burning it.
Yeah.
And then him going, didn't work. All right.
I guess I'll just leave it here.
I'll just leave it.
I guess there'll just be evidence.
Well, we already know what they do with evidence. Hose it off.
Yeah, they didn't give a shit last time, so.
Police Chief Virgil Stewart did not believe there was a connection between Frances and Athalia's murders at the time. With 2 women violently dead in St. Augustine, Florida in 1974, it's time to dive into the theories. The first theory is that Athalia's husband, James Lindsley, was responsible for her murder. James was an easygoing real estate agent who had served 2 terms as mayor of St. Augustine. Though they lived in separate homes, James said they did not have marital problems. Athalia, however, had sent letters to her sister showing they were having issues. Quote, "Jimmy is a complete leech, a complete liar," end quote, she wrote in one letter. She also said she changed the locks of her house. There was also gossip among community members that the crime scene was hosed down to protect James's involvement. According to Elizabeth Randall, author of a book detailing Athalia's murder, James complained about how many rumors flew around the town.
Florida seems like a gossipy state.
Yeah.
Oh, what else are you gonna do there?
You're trapped by swamp and gators.
Yeah.
You're essentially just left to your own devices. Yeah, why don't you just spread some funny rumors?
Whisper storm, baby.
Maybe rumors that are rumors, like you eating that bird.
If you don't stop this bit,
You gonna cut my head off with a machete?
I didn't say that.
In testimony at Athalia's murder trial, though interestingly not a trial prosecuting James, more on that in a bit, James told the jury that he owned a machete resembling the one used to kill his wife. He usually kept it in the trunk of his car, using it to hack at undergrowth while looking at properties for his real estate job. After Athalia's murder, he turned the machete over to police. At that time, it was common for residents in the county to own 1 or 2 machetes used to fight back against the Florida fauna. At the trial, James was shown the machete that was used on his wife. James could not confirm whether it was his, telling the judge, quote, "All machetes look alike to me." end quote. I think it's important to say that because I imagine people who are watching this, they were imagining Jason Voorhees murdering this lady.
Yeah.
But in reality, everyone had a machete, so it could have been Jim from down the street.
You go to the church on Sunday, the priest is standing up there with machete.
He's using it as a pointer.
Yeah.
They're using it
throwing holy water at people.
They're using it to point out items on PowerPoint presentations. Everyone has a machete.
Yeah, it makes sense.
According to Randall's book, there was a gap of around 15 to 25 minutes in James's alibi. It supposedly occurred between the time James drove home from the grocery store where he had been shopping with Athalia and the time he drove back to his own home. Randall posits that James had enough time to drive to Athalia's house during that period.
Unfortunate that if you just have like a 20-minute gap in your schedule where no one sees you, suddenly you're open to be a murderer.
Yeah, that is true. It takes me about 20 minutes to cook my dinner usually. And because of that, I'm a murderer.
You're a murderer.
The second theory is Athalia's neighbor, Alan Stanford, murdered her in the culmination of a months-long feud. According to the New York Daily News, Athalia loved animals and took many in, including noisy dogs and even, at one point, a goat. The noise from these critters often disgruntled her neighbors. According to author Elizabeth Randall, both of Athalia's neighbors, the Stanfords and the McCormicks, filed public complaints about the noise in 1972, resulting in a $50 fine for disturbing the peace. Randall then describes an escalating neighborly feud in which Athalia outraged the Stanfords by cutting back their trees that extended over her property line. According to Randall, Athalia also planted bamboo across a city easement at the corner of the Stanford driveway, which the Stanfords had the city remove. At the time, Stanford was the manager of St. Johns County, of which St. Augustine is the county seat. Athalia had apparently suggested to the county commission that Stanford wasn't qualified for his job, appearing at least 4 times before the commission to complain about him.
That's a strained relationship.
That is. Yeah,
you don't want to be that way to your neighbors.
Yeah, you don't want to have a petting zoo in your house.
The thing about cutting down their tree on her property, that's fine.
So you would do that?
Legally, you're allowed to.
That is
if
true.
There's hangovers, you can lop those.
I did have a neighbor who had an overhang of like a lime tree, and it was great because I could go pick a little lime.
Did you ever think about killing your neighbor?
When he didn't give me limes, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Athalia would claim that Stanford had neglected his duties of maintaining and building roads, but her complaints also verged into the personal. Randall describes a commission meeting where Athalia publicly accused Stanford of putting sugar in her Cadillac's gas tank. More saliently, she also said on October 9th, 1974, that Stanford threatened her, saying, quote, "That man threatened my life. He threatened to kill me," end quote.
Sure, he seems fishy, but it also seems incredibly risky to murder your neighbor.
Especially after all of this has been public. She has, in
For
public,
sure.
4 times complained that he's not good at his job.
Yeah.
Every human's capable of murder if you push them enough. I just don't know if this is enough of a push.
Okay.
It's true.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Oh.
I bet you would murder me if I pushed you enough.
Yeah, probably.
According to Randall, mere hours before Athalia's murder, Stanford had been visited by the Florida Department of Professional and Occupational Regulations at Athalia's request. Randall says they were investigating to see whether Stanford was in violation of Florida state statutes.
Yeah, that's a little fuel to the fire there.
I don't know if it's enough to push him over the edge.
It's certainly not good.
It's not good. It doesn't look great, but I still wonder.
But then when people start showing up to evaluate you,
Yeah, that is true.
you might lose it.
Yeah, I guess you can't really like tattle on her. Like, she's doing this, make her stop.
Yeah.
When Locke McCormick first heard Athalia's screams, he looked to her home and told his grandmother, quote, "Mr. Stanford is hitting Miss Ponsell," end quote, which was Athalia's maiden name. McCormick later explained that he'd assumed it was Stanford based on his clothing and the fact that the man was walking back towards Stanford's house, but he didn't see the man's face or really know if it was him. The police also noted a blood trail that cut across her driveway to a concrete wall that demarcated the divide between her property and Stanford's.
Well, that's all not looking great.
That doesn't look good. Okay, and that's a little bit more than hearsay at that point.
Yeah. Actually, this makes me wonder. Let's say you want to murder someone. Mm-hmm. Would it make sense to study them for a long time, see who's in their life, and then sort of try to disguise yourself or make it look like you're a different acquaintance of theirs. So if I want this lady dead, and I'm like, she's got a feud going on with her neighbor.
With the Stanford guy.
Right over there, he tends to wear these kind of things.
I'll put those on.
I'll put those on. Dress up like him. Thwack-a-thwack. Run through his yard.
Yeah, just roll around in the grass.
Yeah.
On his front lawn.
Get that blood all around there.
Of course they're gonna hose it off, but
It is Florida, so you know they're gonna hose
make
it.
sure that blood's really in the grass.
Yeah. It's close to a perfect crime, maybe. But it's certainly giving you an edge as a murderer.
That is true.
The sheriff took McCormick to a hypnotist in the hopes of unlocking further memories, but the results were inconclusive.
That sounds about par for the course for investigative methods in Florida.
What do we got? How's the evidence looking? Well, we hosed it all down. Okay.
What do you want next?
A hypnotist?
Bring me a metronome.
Recall Dewey Lee had discovered a package of evidence, including a bloody shirt and a watch. While the shirt had been sitting in salt water and mud for too long to determine conclusively if the blood on the shirt was Athalia's blood type, a forensic expert was able to identify a laundry mark as Stanford's name. Ultimately, however, it was decided the mark was too faint and garbled to be conclusive.
It just seems like this guy murdered this
It really
lady,
does.
to me.
Is it
personally.
maybe the fact that the name on the laundry that was found that was bloodied was his? Is that what it is?
I just know none of my laundry's laying out there. One, I don't have my name on my laundry.
Yeah, what is it?
But this is the 70s, maybe things were different.
I don't know. Or he's Andy from Toy Story. He just writes his name on everything.
Yeah. And two, I don't think any articles of my clothing are covered in blood.
No matter what crime comes up, Shane has no bloody clothing at all.
I don't.
Not even a nosebleed?
I was in a church once. It happened in a church once.
Oh my.
I don't go to church. I was just with one of my friends and he was like, you want to go to church? And I was like, all right, man. I was like 9.
So you're telling me at 9 years old you don't go to church. The first time you cross the threshold into holy ground, blood expels from your nostrils.
Yeah. They ran out of tissues. Mopping that up. It was wild.
It sounds wild.
More damning for Stanford was the watch, which a jeweler identified as Stanford's. Stanford claimed that after the murder, he had discovered his watch was missing. Stanford was indicted for the murder. His friends and fellow church members raised $20,000 for his bail and an estimated $250,000 defense fund, which would have the same buying power of more than $1.3 million today. As a quick side note, at the time of Francis Bemis's murder, Stanford was out on bail. With the money raised by his friends, Stanford mounted a formidable defense. Stanford's defense posited that Sheriff Dudley Garrett, Dewey Lee, and Athalia's husband James Lindsley had all worked together to frame Stanford. Quote, "Isn't it strange that all the deputies and trained police officers didn't know what to look for or where to look for it? And without stopping, Lee went right to the spot, walked up to the bank, and there it was. I submit to you that Dewey Lee put it out there that morning." End quote. The defense posited Dewey Lee as a scammer. While he was on the stand, a defense attorney asked Dewey, quote, "Isn't it a fact that you were looking for a spot where nobody could see you put that stuff in the swamp?" End quote.
It does seem like they're desperately grasping at straws.
Yeah, because if you were trying to frame someone, you would want it to look that. I mean, you'd go overboard.
Yeah.
You'd probably try a little too hard and make it a little too obvious looking.
This is confusing. I got a feeling it's gonna end up unsolved.
We'll see.
Key to the defense was the testimony of one Adele McLaughlin, a data processing clerk and neighbor who was riding her bike past Athalia's home at the time. Adele testified that she had seen Dewey in Athalia's yard less than 2 hours before the murder took place. After 2.5 hours of deliberation on February 3rd, 1975, the jury declared Stanford innocent. Afterward, Sheriff Garrett told reporters, quote, "Yes, I think Stanford did it. I signed the complaint against him, and I don't concur with the verdict," end quote.
There is something weird to be said about a town believing so much that this man did not do it that they literally raised $250,000 and only deliberated in the jury for 2.5 hours before saying, yeah, he didn't do it.
If I murdered someone and the entire town was like, no, he didn't.
He couldn't.
I'd be like, this is fuck, this rules.
He earned enough goodwill tickets to cash it in for that
It's
prize
like a punch
of
card.
murder.
Like, I've been a great guy my entire life, and then you get that 10th punch, and it's like, all right,
Here's your free
here's
murder.
your machete.
Here's your machete. Have fun murdering. You get a free one.
In 1974, in a span of less than 10 months, 2 women were violently murdered by hand in the same Florida community. The person responsible for either or even both deaths is a mystery. Could it have been a disgruntled husband, a fed-up neighbor, a scheming mechanic, or someone else entirely? The answer remains unsolved.
I think it was the neighbor. Look, I'm a simple man. I see a trail of blood going to someone's house. Even if they didn't do it, come on, you're going to jail.
I think it might have been a random person.
All right.
It just seems too obvious.
Okay.
There's a paper trail of their feud. Why the hell would he be that dumb?
Rage, you know, lust, rage, just building up, bursting out.
Well, I've never really gotten that angry. I don't really have that capacity.
It's building inside you. Everyone sees it. We all
That's
see it.
great. Oh man, I can't wait for Krakatoa then.
I shudder.
Hope no one's in the way.